Hi everyone, Kristina here. Welcome to another Make a Card Monday video. Today I'm going to be using this new stamp set for My Favorite Things called I Love You More. And I'm going to be putting the greetings inside heart shapes that are watercolored. I'm going to be masking off the area around the heart shapes. So I'm going to use this heart die from Simon Says Stamp. This is from the Thank You Heart die set. And I'm going to be using it as a guide for drawing on some hearts onto watercolor paper. So for this first card that I'm going to show you, the greeting that I'm actually going to use on the card was too large for the heart. So I'm going to end up kind of just using this heart die as a guide and then adjust the actual heart shape that I use to be slightly taller. So I'm tracing the die onto some watercolor paper. This is Strathmore watercolor paper and it is cut to 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 tall. And now I'm going to just sort of elongate the heart a little bit. I want to keep the width of the heart, but I do need it to be slightly taller, just so that the greeting that I'm going to be using fits inside that heart better. I thought it was just a little bit too close to the edges, and I wanted it to have more space around the actual words before you hit the very edge of the heart. So I'm just going around this heart and adding a little bit more height on top and also length on bottom. And then I will erase the inside heart. So that's the original die shape. I'll erase that one. And now I'm going to just test that out and make sure that sentiment's going to be in the right spot. And then I taped it down onto a board so that I can prep my area for watercoloring. I used some blue masking tape to hold that watercolor paper down onto the board. And now I'm going to take some drawing gum. This is a liquid masking fluid, and I'm just using a brush. And whatever brush you use to put on the masking fluid, you want to make sure that you clean it off really, really well after, because this can kind of mess up your really nice brushes. So I just used a brush that I don't use very often and painted on that masking fluid around the edge of the heart. And I noticed with this masking fluid that it does dry fairly quickly. I was able to start working on this heart area after about 7 to 10 minutes, so it didn't take very long at all. And as long as you keep the drying gum, the masking fluid, fairly thin, it dries even more quickly. And it can be a really, really thin coat to make it work. So I just set that aside to dry for a few minutes while I picked out some colors I'm going to use. So I'm using some distress inks for watercoloring today. I'm using the mini ink pads, and the colors I've chosen are Picked Raspberry, which is a nice bright pink, kind of a purpley pink, and then also Seedless Preserves. It's a nice dark berry color, and then Festive Berries, which is a red color, but it's almost more of a pinky red. I first wet the area of the heart with a large clean brush, just with some water. I want to get water on this area, and I'm going to be doing some wet on wet technique. So I'm bringing in the wet watercolor onto some wet cardstock. So I'll take my round brush and just pick up some of that Picked Raspberry, and I'm going to dab it onto the top of the heart and kind of in a little bit of a diagonal pattern. I want it to come down a little bit more on the left side. Then I'll pick up some of that Festive Berries and bring that in here as well, just kind of dabbing in the color. I want to make sure I get the color all the way to those edges. Bringing in a little water to get that moving. And then I'll pick up some Seedless Preserves and also taking that to the very bottom. I'm being careful that I don't watercolor over the area that's masked, or past the area that's masked rather, because I don't want that watercolor to go outside of the heart. So I'm bringing in some more of that Festive Berries. And then I took my mister bottle and I came in and really lightly misted this whole area. And when I did this, it kind of sprayed a little bit of that ink color onto the bottom portion of the heart, so the area that was white. So I decided to go with that, and I'm going to be adding some ink splotches here in a little bit. So I sopped up some of the puddles of water using my paper towel, and then I brought in my heat tool and dried this. And the thing that's kind of cool about it is that because there was so much water collecting up on the edges of the heart, that as it dried, it sort of bled back into the center, and I got this really cool sort of border line on the inside. I think it just looks really, really neat. I decided to go along with that and do my favorite technique with distress inks, which is put plain water on top using my hand in a mister bottle, and the water droplets act almost like a bleach and they pull out the color out of those areas. So I'm just spritzing on some water droplets, and then I can take a paper towel and lift up all of that color. And it gives a really cool effect. You can't really do this with watercolors. It will work somewhat, but distress inks, this is the technique that works really well. So I used my heat tool to make sure that was completely dry. And then I used my fingers to rub off all of that masking fluid or the drying gum. You can also use an adhesive remover. That really pulls up the edges of the masking fluid. Or you could use just a regular gum eraser and it works well. So after the area was completely clean, I picked up some color with my watercolor brush and just tapped the brush over the top of this project here and got some ink droplets all on it. And I thought that just looked really cool. It looks really artsy and added some color into some other areas. So I put little water droplets of all three colors on this, and then I used my heat gun to heat set this until everything was completely dry. I wanted to make sure that everything was dry before I moved on to this next part. So now I'm prepping the heart area with my EK Success powder tool. I'm going to emboss in white embossing powder over the top of the heart, and I wanted to make sure that the embossing powder was only going to stick to areas where I wanted it. So I inked up my stamp with Versamark ink and then pressed that down onto the watercolor paper. I sprinkled on some Hero Arts white embossing powder. And one thing to note is that those areas where the liquid mask was, it does tend to attract some of that embossing powder, so I did have to clean that off a little bit. I had that one little droplet up at the top that I didn't realize was not dry, so it spread that color. But just like I did before where I brought in the water and it kind of bleached the paper, I put some water on that area and then picked up some of it with my paper towel. It didn't completely clean up that area, but it did lighten that little pink trail. So I used my heat tool to melt that embossing powder, and then I prepped my card base. I'm using some Simon Says Stamp Dull Pink cardstock, and I just scored that at 5.5 to create a top folding card. I adhered it down to the card base using some foam adhesive, and that finishes my first card. But I did want to show you guys that I did another card as well using a different color palette. And this time when I did the card, I used the original shape of the heart die. And I put that masking fluid all around the heart and then let it dry. And this masking fluid was on even thinner and it dried even more quickly. I think this is ready to go in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to speed up the video here through all the watercoloring so that you can see exactly what I was doing. But before I get to that, I just want to show you the colors I'm using. I'm using Festive Berries, Squeezed Lemonade, and also Salty Ocean. So now I'm going to speed up the whole video process so it doesn't take quite as long. And I used the exact same steps that I used for the previous card. I added water to the area first, and then I started to bring in all that color. So I started with the Festive Berries, and then I brought out some Squeezed Lemonade. And I brought the lemonade down quite a ways to the bottom because I knew the yellow would kind of get lost. Then I brought in the Salty Ocean. And this sort of almost creates a rainbow look. I think it looks really fun. That area in the top corner of the heart where the red was creeping down to meet the blue, I used my paper towel to kind of sop up some of that paint color so that it wouldn't mix too much because I knew it was going to turn kind of grayish if all three of those colors mixed. So I used my heat tool and heat set this until everything was completely dry. I wanted to make sure that I stopped that color from moving because I didn't want it to blend anymore. So after it was completely dry, I put on those water droplets once again like I did on the previous card, and then picked it up with a paper towel, and like it did before, it sort of bleached that area. Added more water droplets and picked it up with a paper towel, and then heat set that until it was completely dry. After the area was dry, I used my eraser, my adhesive eraser, and also my fingertips to clean up this entire masking area. Just wanted to make sure that the area around the heart was completely clean and ready to move on before I went on to adding more water droplets on top. And I did end up adding more water droplets just like I did in the previous one, although I think this looks really, really pretty just by itself without anything else on top of it. I think you could definitely keep it just the way it is as well. So I picked up some of that paint, and because I was going to I learned on the first one that those water droplets kind of go wherever they want. I decided to protect my work surface with a few paper towels around the edges. So I put those water droplets on, cleaned up my acrylic block, and then heat set that entire area so that I could pull it off the board and move on with the rest of the card. So I just moved my heat tool around, making sure I got all of those little water droplets. And once everything was dry, I was able to pull it off the board. And then I moved on to the greeting for the card here. So now we're back in real time. It's not sped up anymore. And the grading I'm using on this one, I'm going to be stamping it in VersaFine Black Onyx. And that's because that yellow area in the center was a little bit too light. And I knew that if I put white on top, you wouldn't be able to read it. So I used VersaFine ink, and that's a pigment ink, so it stays wet just a little bit longer. And I applied some Ranger Clear embossing powder and then heat set that with my heat tool. I adhered it to an Audrey Blue note card from Simon Says Stamp, and that completes the card. I'm going to bring in the other cards so you can see both of them side by side. You can see how pretty they are. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and you try out some of these masked watercolor hearts, and I will see you guys on Wednesday for a new Color Wednesday video. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder that all of the supplies that I used in this video are listed down below in the video description and also at my blog. On screen right now are 3 other card videos that I've done recently that have love or Valentine's Day themed cards. So I hope you'll check those out. You can hit that subscribe button in the top corner, and also please give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.